Chipotle is targeting income. Let's get into it. What is up, Matt to the Maxers? It is, of course, Matthew Thomas. Thank you so much for tuning in to this weekly video. Before we really dive into all the tasty Chipotle information, make sure to like this video, hit subscribe, and make sure to turn on that notification bell. As you probably saw recently, Chipotle CEO has made some headline news for talking about their recent core audience and that they might be exclusively targeting them in the future as well. So before we really get too involved in everything, I do want to read his quote first. This is from Fox Business. I will have all my links and sources, as of course, will be in the description of this podcast if you'd like to check it out for your own reading. But he said, we learned that 60% of our core audience users are over $100,000 a year in income, in average household income. That gives us confidence that we can lean into that group in a more meaningful way to really drive meaningful transaction performance in the year. That's from a leaked audio call according to Yahoo Finance. Now, I find this very interesting. 60%, while it is a majority, it's not like 80, 90%. It's still 40% who are not in the $100,000 income a year. Now, I will say, so for some research for this, before I fully dive into everything, I actually went to Chipotle for lunch today to really check out what this experience is, their pricing, and all of that. So it looks like for their price increase, they're looking at about 1 to 2%, which, if you really think about it, if the meal is $10 minus extras, so 1 to 2% is really 10 or 20 cents, which I would say for most people like myself, I wouldn't notice that. Now, if it was like 50, a dollar, if something went from $2 to $3, that's a noticeable jump. But 1 to 2% on something that is $10, $11 is not that noticeable based on my experience. So they're really leaning into the experience and why people should eat Chipotle, especially if they make over $100,000 a year. I feel a little, it's kind of silly, honestly, basically because I don't think the experience is what they should be selling. Because I went to a Chipotle, and again, this is from Chipotle in South Bend, Indiana. Maybe it's different elsewhere. I thought it was fine. I didn't think it was anything super crazy, but I didn't think it was anything terrible. I thought it was a fine experience. But if that's what they're going on, I don't think that's the selling point. What would sell me, and I know they've been adding better protein options, healthier food, organically sourced food, all of things like that, I think would be the selling point. Now, for me, hey, I'm totally okay with eating a pizza or eating some Taco Bell, even though it's not the healthiest food option. It's still quite cheaper, and I feel full afterwards. Again, I know it's not the best food on the planet, but if you eat it occasionally for lunch, I don't think it's that big of a problem. Again, for my personal experience, my personal health, I think it's okay. But I will say, with that, my meal was almost $14, and I did have a steak bowl, which is one of the pricier protein options, along with adding queso on it. So that does drive up the price a little bit. But at that price point, for lunch, I didn't really want to add chips or a drink. I just wanted to get the bowl. And I will say, food is actually really good. But I wouldn't go there on a weekly basis. I probably haven't been to Chipotle in a few years at this point. I just did it for the research for this video. And again, I don't think it screams everyone makes $100,000 who goes to Chipotle. And again, I know the CEO works for the stockholders. Let's just get that out right now. They work for the stockholders. So with that, obviously this was a stockholder, I assume, kind of call based on that it was leaked. So I would say maybe that was just for the stockholders. Maybe that's their internal strategy. And maybe their external strategy would be, we're going to focus on healthier food. Now, I find it interesting, though. So he did talk about $100,000 income in the call, and that's what's been reported. But Chipotle also did say in a follow-up, because obviously they're doing some PR kind of control, some damage control with what was going on. They did release a follow-up. Pricing was never mentioned regarding this consumer cohort, and Chipotle has taken a slow and measured approach by only increasing prices in this quarter around 0.7% compared to the industry average of 4%. Now, I will agree with that many places have been raising their prices, but it's interesting that yes, they didn't talk about pricing, but they also talked about income, which can be correlated to pricing because they're basing this 100,000 off one of their recent kind of evaluations. They're kind of just basing that people over 100,000 eat out more, which I would say is true because obviously less money you have to spend. You don't go out as much. You find other ways to either eat at home or less pricier options. Now, for me personally, I would rather have a bunch of wings, but I would say for lunch, I think Chipotle is fine. I do think it's a little pricey for what you get. Again, quality food, I definitely did taste it, but at the same time, I don't think it would really attract me to come back other than a very few occasions that I've been. So I'm curious for you guys in concluding this video, does your income dictate how many times you eat out a week or a month or a year? And does Chipotle slowly raising their prices, but leaning into the core 100,000 income audience, would that make you want to eat there more, eat there less? If you make over 100,000, do you get Chipotle more often, or would you get Chipotle more often? I'm very curious. Obviously, I'm not in that tax bracket. I don't know anyone who is right now, but I'm very much interested in this because let's say for other kind of companies and restaurants, if you do make over 100,000, is that where people are going to be targeting? Is the people of money more willing to spend it on fine to good experiences, or would they be spending their money elsewhere or saving their money because they go with more frugal options? Because that would price me out of almost everything if that's a company strategy going forward. I don't make that much money or none right now. Will that call for more increase to prices, justifying that at least we can retain 60% of our audience? But I feel that that's a little flawed because that's if the 60% still want to spend money on the raised prices. Because to me, if you just offer the same thing, but you just raise the price, I don't think you're really saving anything. I don't think you're gaining anything by eating the Chipotle. Again, I think it's good. Maybe I'll consider it more in the future. Again, I don't eat the healthiest myself, and maybe that's the more of the target. Maybe it's $100,000 plus eating healthier food. Maybe they can elaborate on that more. But to just say we want to target people with a higher income, I think is a flawed approach. But let me know in the comments section if you want to see more restaurant-related news and information. Make sure to subscribe to Matt to the Max. I'm your host, Matthew Thomas, reminding you to stay frosty.